Welcome back to the Nose Plays Endless Space 2, continuing part 3 of our Vaulter series and some tips, tricks, and strategies for the early game with the new Penumbra DLC. A lot of things are going well for us after what I felt was a little bit of a rocky start, but we have some things that we're going to have to deal with. Let's talk about a few of those things. So a couple of my viewers have been commenting in the last video, and I do greatly appreciate that. Any insights that you guys have, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I do try to respond to anybody who does comment. And one of the things that may have become apparent at this point in the game is that we're stretched kind of thin economically in terms of dust and in terms of influence. There's a lot of things that I would like to do that both require dust and influence, and we just don't have it. That being said, keep in mind that despite the fact that our economy is not as good as it could be, we were able to take 5 turns off of our last settlement turn timer. So that's pretty impressive. What I tend to find with many factions, though not all, but specifically with the Vaulters, is right around turn 30, you really start to feel the crunch on your economy. And if you haven't already started to plan and play ahead of curve, what you're going to find is that you're really struggling next 10 to 20 turns past 30, where early on those cyber reality buildings that we were building with the 15 dust and the 15 science tend to help you along through the early game. They don't do so well in the late game, and unless you're focusing on getting new science down, new economy buildings down, you're going to see both your science and your economy start to slip off the pace that is appropriate for a mid-game pace. I have a plan to solve that, and we're going to talk about what that plan is in just a moment. But the other thing that I want to point out that's really stretching us thin is our influence. Right now, we're losing about half of our influence every single turn to law upkeep, and laws are pretty important in the early game. They can really help shave a couple of turns off of some of your things, but I want to specifically spend just a few moments talking about wrong screen, the Dirty Hands Act. So as you can see from the pop-up here, the Dirty Hands Act is minus 10% system improvement cost on systems. This has been nerfed pretty heavily from its original iteration, which happened right around the time of the Vaulters DLC, just before that actually, in early 2018 I believe. They made a change to this, specifically to boost the Sophons, who were one of the weaker early game factions, specifically because they had really crappy time with industry. And there was a similar law to this, I believe, that used to be a pacifist law, but they moved it, and maybe even kept the same name, I don't recall, it's been so long, to the science faction so that the Sophons would start with it. And I think it was something ridiculous, like 25% or 20% reduction to the cost of your system improvements at the time. Whatever it was much more powerful than it is today. And today it's still a really good skill. You saw us in that video take a couple of turns off of some of our core buildings. So we were going to get both in Xeno-industrial infrastructure and public-private partnerships down like 1 or 2 turns earlier, just because we got this activated and in effect. Beyond that, this law has kind of a mixed feeling to me at this point in the game. And the reason for that is this law is incredibly powerful the more systems you have and the lower your population is. So factions that have the ability to spread out and grab lots of colonies in the first 20 to 30 turns of the game benefit from this law more than factions that are on a slower pace to get colonies out. And specifically, the faster you can do it, the lower your population overall will be, and the lower the impact of this law is, while maximizing the number of times that you get that 10% bonus. So while it says minus 10% system improvement cost on systems, as long as we have multiple systems producing a system improvement and not a ship and not a colony and not something else, we're getting an amplified uh, boost from this effect. When we have fewer systems than other players, as is the case at the moment between us and the Hishu, they have a lot more systems down than we do at this point. Um, we're not getting as much out of this law as we could, and the longer that we wait, typically, the more influence it costs us because our population continues to grow. And that's a problem. And now you've got to start to weigh the cost benefit ratio here. One of the things that we would really like to do is engage a little bit more with the pirates. In order to do that, we're going to have a lot more influence. And one of the ways to start to boost our influence is to take this particular law offline at various points in the game. I think we're at a point now where if we're not having at least 3 and soon to be 4 systems building a system improvement, if any of our systems are doing something other than building a system improvement, we need to probably take this law offline. I just don't think that the cost of influence is worth the cost of industry that we're going to get from it. Now that breakpoint is hard to quantify because these are very different measurements. Influence is used for very different things than industry is used for. But at some point, you're going to be able to do more with the influence than you would with the little bit of industry that you saved. There is a breakpoint. And so what we're going to try to do is find that breakpoint in the next few turns. We're going to disable this law occasionally, and we're going to try to line it up over periods of time where systems are doing things that are not ideal for this law. For example, I pointed out in the last video, a number of times we were upgrading a colony or populating a planet with a colony from a system we already owned. And I'm fairly certain that this effect does not affect colonization. So you don't get the -10 on any system that's working on colonization. So one way that we could min-max our influence output is attempt to line up the time frame in which most of our systems are grabbing new colonies, disable this law, bank the influence because we're not getting any benefit from this law at all when all of our systems are colonizing as opposed to building system improvements, and then re-enable this law as a certain number of our systems come back out of colonization and into system improvement production. And if they're not, maybe we, instead of jumping into system improvement, build another ship while we're waiting for the other ones to finish their colonization. Just do anything we can to minimize that loss of influence at this point in the game. It's going to be really important, and it's going to help us get enough influence to do some interactions with pirates and minor factions that up to this point we have not been able to do. Staying on the topic of influence, and just for your information, this is a very min-maxy kind of thing. This is something that you really have to be focused on your economy to take care of. This is probably not something you're going to be doing in multiplayer very often, and only if you're like a real hard ass when it comes to making your faction as efficient as possible. But this is one little detail that you can use to improve specifically your influence output. Disabling the Dirty Hands Act when you're not getting optimal output from it, and then re-enabling it when you are. Got to remember to do all those things, which I'm not very good at. And so a lot of times I'll just let this run in the background, even though it kills our influence output. So again, focusing on the influence output, let's talk about a very special and specific thing that I want to look at. Where's that? Here it is. History mine. Okay, so we can see this is a Vaulter specific science tech. That means that it's altered in some way for Vaulters that other players don't get. And so it's really important whenever you see a technology with this Vaulter symbol or with whatever faction you're playing symbol to pay careful attention to the buildings. Because sometimes there's a little change or a little detail that interacts with your faction in a way that's very positive for you. In this particular case, the Oregon History Center is the building that is minorly altered from other factions' buildings. And this building provides more influence per system level than other factions would get if they built the same exact building. So this building replaces the standard building, and I don't even remember exactly what that building is called, with the Oregon History Center, which is a better version of that building. But the cool part is it doesn't really cost any significantly amount more. It's the same cost as the original building, but it provides more resources. And so this is one of those ways that you can enhance your faction and take advantage of things that you need. So this is a building that we're going to try to rush. And I know I've talked a little bit about rushing being a bad thing, and I'll point out why that is again. So if I click on this, you can see it's going to take 9 turns from where we're at right now. So 4 turns to finish that, another 5. So essentially 5 turns, and it'll probably be more like 10 because when this completes, this is going to add a little bit more science to us. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, 6 turns to get this complete. If I take this out of the queue and I queue this up, you can see these technologies only take 1 extra turn. Okay? So jumping up a tier costs you something. And the main thing that it's costing you is time. Anytime you jump up a tier, it takes significantly longer to get this research, and then these buildings cost more than the ones down here. And I listened back to my video the last couple of days. I've tried to talk about this a couple of times, and I've just stumbled over my words, and I don't think I've made it very clear. So 4X Alchemist has this term that they like to use called tact, and I don't know if this is appropriate to tact, but if you listen to them, maybe go back and re-listen to their discussions on tact at some point. But basically what they're trying to tell you is that everything has a cost, and what this is costing me to jump ahead is time. If there's anything in this lower tier that I could do that would give me benefit in the here and now, time-wise, if I could get a building down faster, time-wise, and start gaining from it, then I'm going to be further ahead by doing this now than I would be by waiting several turns to get this done and then get this building done. There are circumstances where that's not necessarily the case, where it makes sense to jump ahead, but it's specifically in situations where you're trying to fill the void of a deficit. We're going to try to fill some deficits today. One of the deficits that we have, a big deficit that we have, is influence. We don't have a good way of generating influence right now. A lot of other factions do. But for us at this point in the game, right around turn 30, we don't. And one of the great ways that the Vaulters have of improving their influence gathering is this building right here. And the reason for that is the moment that this building goes down, we're already at system level 2. That's 100 influence per turn that we're getting. And if we manage to then relatively quickly rush to tier 3, wherever this building gets built, that's 150 influence per turn. So this building by itself can solve a lot of your influence problems. it also adds an additional 25% influence to your current output. So that's even more influence on top of the flat amount that it's already giving you, on top of whatever it is you're currently earning per turn. So this building has one of those scenarios, because it's enhanced, because it's better than the typical version of this building, where I would say at some point in the game, it's worth thinking about, at the very least, jumping up and grabbing this. Now, if this were the normal version of this building, I don't remember for certain, but I think the normal version of this building gives 25 influence per system level. It could be more like 40 or 30. I can't remember for certain. Um, but I know that it's less than 50. And at that point, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it's not worth jumping up early to get this. Maybe it's worth looking at other options. And we do have other options. This is another option that we have. Spin projects is a really, really good way if you're trying to get influence, to get more laws on the table, to get more influence on the table, so that you actually have some to spend for diplomacy. And what this does is basically it forces all of your working population on that particular planet to produce one extra influence. That would essentially offset the cost of a one influence per pop law. And that means we would be banking 26 per turn, roughly, if I did my math right over here. Roughly, we're losing 13 per turn right now. We're gaining 13 per turn. So yeah, we would be gaining, instead of 13, we'd be gaining 26 per turn. That would add up a lot more quickly. This works better if most of your population is on a few planets. When you start spreading population out over multiple planets, then the cost in industry to get this up and running on several planets is not as good as it could be. But if you have a couple of planets with a very high population count, this can be a really effective way of increasing your influence output. And it's relatively cheap. Like I said, we can put this in the queue and get it done in one turn. Another one that's really good, and one that we definitely want to consider grabbing, is this building. Minus 20% points required to unlock the next hero on Empire. Vaulters and a few other factions benefit greatly from the number of heroes that they have in their empire. And the reason for that has to do with their starting government. +1 system overcolonization penalty per hero on Empire. So what this is that as we start to fill this bar up and we get closer to our current cap of 7, adding heroes to our empire increases this cap by 1. And so getting a building that grants you heroes more quickly will inadvertently increase your potential approval and size, or potential size, of your empire before you start to have some pretty nasty penalties. So that technology is looking really tasty for me right now. Both this one and this one, both of these are really, really good, and they're really, really great ways to solve problems with influence, which we're definitely having right now. To transition this conversation back to dust, there are some great ways to handle your dust problems over here in this side of our empire. And some of them are going to be better than others. One of them is a short-term solution, and one of them is a long-term solution. And we'll have to decide which one of these we want to take. The first and most important is not this one, this one, this one. Commercial frameworks. Rushing commercial frameworks for almost every faction may be one of the most important things you do in the game. Commercial frameworks is so important once you learn how trading companies work and how amazing they can be for completely skyrocketing your economy. I am not a master of trade companies, but I know that no matter what faction you're using, whether it is the United Empire, whether it is the Lumeris, whether it is the Cravers, commercial frameworks and getting proper trade routes down and investing in those trade routes is one of the most important ways to get your economy off the ground. And a good rule of thumb is if you can have commercial frameworks down before turn 30 or right around turn 30, you are in really good shape to potentially really skyrocket your economy by the mid game. Um, this building by itself, with a little bit of investment and planning, can completely eliminate your needs for dust. You wouldn't necessarily need any other dust investment once you get some of this stuff down. So I highly encourage you, if you have not seen Forex Alchemists um, take on trade companies, go back and watch some of their videos on the Lumeris specifically, because that's probably the best case scenario since the Lumeris are kind of the dust focused faction. But they demonstrate very clearly how powerful these buildings can be. Now, in some of their earlier videos, they were more powerful than they are today. They have been nerfed significantly, but they're still incredibly important to getting your economy stabilized and powerful into the mid to late game. So this is definitely a technology we're going to consider. This is also long-term though. This takes a while to get up and running. Like once we get this technology, we have to invest a lot of time and energy and mental power into remembering to upgrade it and whatnot. And hopefully we'll get a chance to demonstrate some of that. Short-term solutions, and this is conditional, is this building. Um, +1 per population on planet and +3 per population with luxury resource deposits on planet. We have a ton of luxury resource deposits on numerous planets in all the systems that we've pretty much colonized or are planning to colonize. And what this means is that our population pips will produce a lot of dust for us. A significant amount, maybe not a lot, but a significant amount, a meaningful amount of dust for us. This building is another one that will take a very short time to research and then to get up and running because the industry cost is so low and our industry output is like close to 200 in our best systems, over 200 in our best systems, and close to 200 in our newer systems already. So this is another great way to completely eliminate our early game pains with economy. This is going to enhance our ability to settle the Argosy earlier, but it is dependent on the types of systems you find, because there are many games where you don't find systems with luxury resources, and this building is relatively worthless without luxury resources. This is a specialization. If you do have a lot of sterile planets, and you do have a lot of population, it becomes more valuable. But again, specialization buildings, they're very cheap to get up. Um, and so that's good, but they're not worth a lot until you have a lot of population on a planet. And so I would rarely invest in these until your population on at least one or more of your planets has started to fill out. And specifically, if you have a need for that resource, and also if it matches the bonus type. So in this case, if we have a number of sterile planets that are filled up, this would be a good specialization to consider. Regular planets, not so much, but because the industry cost is so low, it can still help if you're just like right on the borderline of being solvent or needing a little more science or needing a little more influence, whatever, you can change your specialization to help you. This is the other dust building that you can use to solve early game dust problems. One of the problems with this building is that it has a fairly high industry cost for when you can get it, because it is one of those unique buildings. You can only build this once in your empire. But once you start to get some of your system developments down, this will basically give you 50 extra dust, and it will give you 3 extra dust per population pip in that system. So if you have a large population in your main capital city, this is a good building to throw down there. Capital city is usually the first one to get system developments as well. So this can give you a nice influx of dust in the early game if you're starting to notice your economy slip, this is one way to quickly solve that, or at least relatively quickly solve that. The other thing that this provides is the ability to start using dust to buy out things a little more quickly. That's less important in the early game, but it does become more important in the late game. And this is such an important ability in the later parts of the game, especially once you get trade networks going, that you'll probably want to come back and grab this technology if you haven't already grabbed it. So this is one we'll almost certainly grab at some point in the game. Whether we grab it early or late will depend on if we have access to a cheaper building that can solve our dust problems, like this one, which we do, or we don't. If you don't have access to luxury resources, this is a great way to solve dust. If you do, this is probably a better way because it's a lot cheaper to get started. And if you're feeling frisky, you can always jump up a tech, jump up a tier. But again, one turn to get that down, one turn to get that down, 5 or 6 turns to get this down. So, we got some decisions to make, and we're going to have to decide which one of these two things we want to start to pursue first. That's a lot of talking already, and we haven't even really started this turn yet. When we last left off, we were trying to siege these guys down. One of my viewers, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but you know who you are, mister, and I appreciate your input. He's mentioned that the Hishu have the ability to accelerate their colonization by paying their special key substitute for approval resource. And so if they bank a lot of key, they can force a colony down sooner than they normally would be able to. Otherwise, their food reduces the amount of key every turn that it would cost to just auto-colonize. And that's very likely what happened here. They saw that we were maybe trying to scout it, maybe trying to take this system, and they spent a bunch of their key to get this down quickly and reduce the number of turns that it was going to take to colonize. Very similar to how we can kind of reduce the number of turns our ship colonizes by paying resources. They have the ability to do that with this as well. However, because I feel confident that they probably have been doing that since they already have, I think the computer pop-up we got last game said they were at 4 or 5 systems already. I know they were at 4 because they hit that quest. They were the first to colonize 4 systems or whatever, and I think this might have been their 5th. They're on their 6th. There's a very good chance that they are really, really depleted in key and will not be able to rush this one. The other thing that I don't know that would be good to know is if our blockade of this system prevents them from buying it out in some way. And that would be good to know, but at this point in time, I don't have that answer. I guess we'll find out here in the near future. At the moment, it's really unclear what's going to happen with this system, because if we zoom in on it, it says that it is 2 turns away from becoming a colony, but it also says that it is at negative growth, and if it reaches 0, it will be removed. So I don't know which of these things is true, and I don't know if the tooltips are just confused because of the way that the Hishu's special interactions work or something else is going on. From what I can tell, we're at minus 14 food per turn. I think that's because our ships are in this region. And as long as we're able to leave them here, that's going to be bad for them. Once this ship gets here, if that number goes down further, from minus 14 to like minus 21 or something, then we'll know basically how this system works to some extent. I thought it worked a little differently than it is, but I'm happy with the fact that this is negative 14 and that these guys are not likely to get this system at the moment. They may still be able to buy it out with key though, so we'll have to look out for that. There's not much we can do about it. What else do we need to talk about? There was something important from the last video that I really wanted to discuss. And I can't think of what it is at the moment, so hopefully I will remember in the next few turns. Let's go ahead and get going. Sorry for that lengthy introduction, but some of these things need to be said, and hopefully this is the reason you guys are coming to my channel, because this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to give you quite frequently when I have the insight and the opportunity to do so. So, without further ado, turn 26. Alright, let's see, did this went down a turn. So this isn't good. This means that they are very likely going to get this next turn, and there's not much we can do about it. That sucks. I really didn't want to have to fight them for it, but that looks like what we might have to do. This technology also sucks. Minus 10 approval on systems for 10 turns is pretty annoying if it pushes your empire below thresholds, which I think for us it will, because we just barely got across the line last game. 15% industry on colonies for 10 turns is also pretty shitty. But 15 industry is a flat amount, and where we have such a high amount of industry, this might be the less impactful choice for us, and I'll show you why. Let's go to this screen for a moment. We can find part of it here. So right now we are devoted, and we are getting an extra 15 dust per turn, almost 16. And that is because we are getting 30% dust on Empire. If we drop below a certain threshold, this will drop to 15%. So basically half that bonus dust will go away. So that's roughly 7 or 8 dust, right? 7 or 8 dust gone. But in addition to that, it also affects our science. And so right now we're getting about 80 science per turn from devoted. That'll drop down to about 40, 41. So we'd be losing 8 dust, 40 science, but it doesn't end there. Because each individual system is also getting bonus food. And so we're getting 32 food on this system, 23, 24 food on this system, and 17 food on this system. All of those numbers would be cutting half. But it doesn't end there, because each individual system also gets bonus influence from your happiness. And so if we drop below certain thresholds, I will lose half of this as well. And it's just, that's a lot of resources. But what I do notice is that we are ecstatic. We do have a lot of things going on for us right now. The problem is the timers on some of these things are going to start falling off. We're going to start losing those bonus golden ages, and we're going to start losing... I don't see anything else actually that we're going to lose. Just the golden age bonuses are going to start to fall off. Without doing the math, I can see that we're well over 100 right now, so 10's probably not going to bring us below 1,000. Or sorry, 100%. In this system, 10's probably not going to bring us down below, and in this system, 10's probably not going to bring us... Well, we're going to be right on the edge in this system. So that being the case, we may only lose a little bit of resources in this. That was a lot of talk to go ahead and take the thing that I wasn't planning on taking. Another thing to consider, and I didn't notice this before, this is the first time I've really paid attention to this. This lasts for 20 turns, as far as political ideology is concerned. This lasts for 30 turns. That means we're going to have a lot of religious influence in our empire for a lot longer. I don't like that at all because we're not interested in the religious party at the moment. I definitely want to keep the scientists in power. So we are going to go ahead and take this. But if we didn't have all those golden ages running, then this minus 10 might be more detrimental. And it could cut a lot of those other bonuses significantly, which at some point 15 industry on 225 is not that big a deal compared to what we would lose otherwise. We'll take this and we'll see where we're at. So we managed to stay above the line on every system for now. The one thing we got to keep in mind is that those golden ages do start to fall off in stacks of 10 and 15. So this one's got 25 plus 10. This one's got 25 plus 10. This one's got 20 from each of these, but one of them is going to fall off soon, and then the other one's going to fall off a little bit later. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that, and we may have to build some more approval buildings to stay above the line. Argosy is going to be ready in one turn, and just a reminder, click this button, and it'll take us right to him. So he's sitting over in Pegasus. We'll have to figure out where we want to go. Orem is definitely a choice to consider, but I'm almost considering whether we come down to Hoth. I have a feeling we're going to lose Hoth here next turn, so that's probably not an option. Orem's probably the safe bet. The other option is to move out this way, but the problem with moving out this way, and the thing that we have to be worried about, is we know for a fact there's a sanctuary city here, which basically puts a bunch of sleepers in our empire if we colonize there, I think. And there could be multiple sleeper cells down this way as well. So definitely a concern until we get the higher tech. Haha! And speaking of tech, that is the thing that I forgot to go over with you at the beginning of the game. So I was typing in the word stealth down here, but it's actually cloak. And you can see all of the cloaking technology is over here. There's a line of cloaking technology that gives you cloaking, and then there's a line of cloaking technology that reveals cloaking. We'll be investigating that a little bit more, but we definitely need to consider getting some of these modules that reveal cloaking as quickly as possible. The highest detection level for cloaking is level 3. If you have level 3 detection, you can basically reveal any cloaked ships. Cloaked ships can't really sneak up on you anymore. Cloaked systems can't really hide from you anymore. But the very first level of cloak revealing is right here. Anti-cloaker 1. Fleet anti-cloaking level 1. This basically reveals where enemy ships are and also where enemy systems are if you're the Umbral Choir and you have hidden systems. If they manage to get fleet cloaking level 2, then we're going to have to jump up to the next tier to get anti-cloaking level 2. So, and so on and so forth. It just gets higher and higher. We'll look at those in more detail later on, especially if the Umbral Choir becomes a problem. One other option we do have with the Umbral Choir is we could try to make them our friends, but I don't know how that's going to work out. This is a timely event for us. This event usually happens every game to you. Basically, capture, assimilate, or attract a new population type. This happens. There are a dozen ways that it happens. We're not going to worry about making it happen. It's going to happen, and when it happens, we're going to get 80 influence, which we'll definitely be able to put to use. Okay, Xeno-industrial infrastructure got done on Pegasus. Drone networks is going to be done in one turn now. Miners Union and Xeno-industrial infrastructure. This is on our bad system that doesn't get a lot of bonuses for this yet, so we're not going to try to rush it by any stretch. In fact, let's take a look and see. Yeah, there's nothing better we can build this turn than that. But I'm going to go ahead and queue up predictive logistics. And since we finished that tech, we're going to go ahead and throw that in our queue everywhere. Because it's such a great building. And in fact, we may even move it ahead of this building. Because right now, this building does not have a lot of value for us. This building becomes much more valuable once we fill the population on this planet and this planet up. So this one's going to be in the queue, but it may continually get kicked back. We do need public-private partnerships, and we do want cerebral reality. I may even put that in front. And in fact, I may even put that all the way in front. Just to give us a little bit of boost to science and industry. These two buildings really do help. This before predictive logistics? Yeah. Yeah, because this is a 30. So this is going to give us 30 industry and 30 science. And then this is going to increase that by another 10. So it's not quite as good as getting this down, since we have a temperate fertile world. So yeah, it's a good thing we came and looked at this. We'll definitely want to get miners union down at some point. I guess I'll just throw it in the queue. Because we do have two separate sites that are mining resources, and that will double their output essentially. So always worth it. Even at prices on titanium tank, we can always sell the titanium and get some of that dust from the upkeep of that building back, if not more. What else do we need to consider? We have a hack traveling, and we only have one hack. We're 5 turns away from that, so we don't need to worry about that for a while. This ship has a probe. I guess it's worth sending this probe this way. That's going to reveal hopefully both of these systems. And continue moving. And again, this is where that 10 movement is really helpful, because now we have the ability to launch probes and keep moving. I really like having 10 movement. I do want to come over here and grab all of these curiosities. And we discovered one of these. There is the possibility that the Umbral Choir is on that. He could also be on this one. And I'm not 100% certain if he always starts on an asteroid field. That's a possibility as well. We may find an asteroid field somewhere in this constellation. That's probably more likely. I don't think the Umbral Choir would start in a node off to the side like that. But he might have a beacon there. Oh, right. The Argosy is ready for travel in one turn. Okay. Not this turn. Okay, something happened. Alright, so the Argosy's ready. We're going to go ahead and bust it out. And while we have it here, let's go ahead and take a look at, can we do anything yet? We cannot. So one of the cool things about the Argosy that I mentioned in the comment section of one of SB's more recent videos is that there is a point at the game where colonizing with this is less than optimal. The galaxy's crowded, there are very few spots that are very valuable left, and you've reached your colonization limit, and so building more crappy systems just tanks your approval, and it's not a good use of this ship any longer. At that point in the game, there are some technologies in the science wedge of the tech wheel that allow you to put more modules on here, and specifically some modules that are more military-ish. And there's one specific ability that's really cool that actually turns the Argosy into a teleportation point for the rest of your fleets. And so what that means is, let's say you have 7, 8, 9 systems down at that point. You can build 9 ships independently, 9 different ships, all at the same time in all your systems. Get them all built, and then if they all have teleportation sites, you can teleport them directly to the Argosy and create a massive fleet right behind the enemy lines. It is a really neat tactic, and so using the Argosy's incredibly high movement to get to a location and then teleport your whole fleet there instantly is a pretty neat um, thing that you can do with the Vaulters. But it does require you investing pretty deep and heavily into the science wedge of the tech tree to do, and that means you're going to be in the mid to late game before that really becomes a viable option. But it is something that has always been on my mind since I learned that it's possible, and one thing that we may try to do at some point on this channel, just to show it off, because it would be freaking cool. Got our filter barges done. Taking a peek here, we're up to 5 and 7 per turn, which is really good output. You would think that that would be enough for most players, but not for us. We're going to hunt for more. And so we jump over here. I'm going to take the long way. And the reason I'm going to take the long way, if you pay very careful attention, my detection range is just a little bit wider than the detection range of whatever ship went here earlier. And so there's a very slim chance that this wider detection range might grab another system. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case, because I'm pretty sure when we scouted Aurum, we found the one that reveals all of the nearby nodes. But you never know. Maybe that's just around Aurum and not here. Okay, so we didn't detect anything, but we did uncover a little bit more of the fog of war. And now we'll just go ahead and finish the rest of this move. So we'll get there in a couple of turns, way more turns than we have the resources to accelerate. Taking a look at cost this time, and it's 41 titanium and Hyperion, so not quite double what the last one was, but over 3,000 dust. Yikes. Also, we have hit negative on our dust due to our military upkeep all of a sudden, apparently. That might have something to do with the Argosy coming out. What is the upkeep cost of the Argosy? Just out of curiosity. 12. Well, I think it's more than 12, actually. It is... Nope, that is calculating the entire cost. Fleet and ships. Okay, well, we may have to deal with the fact that we have suddenly gone negative. That could be related to... so this is exactly what I was talking about. We lost a bunch of our dust output because 2 of our systems have dropped. Well, no, we're still at plus 30% dust. What happened here? I mean, I know we completed some things, but come on. Well, it's a good thing we moved Cerebral Reality up in the queue. And I know we're getting other things completed. I guess just the combination of the drop in approval and Argosy coming out has maybe tanked our dust. I think that's pretty much resolved which one of these researches we're going to take next. I think it's going to be Astrofinance. The reason it's going to be Astrofinance is because this is going to be cheap and a quick way to resolve our early game dust problems. Because we do have so many systems with luxury resources that are starting to get significant numbers of population, this will keep us solvent and help us get on track. Just out of curiosity though, that'd be 8 turns just to get this tech, and then a number of turns to get a first trade company down. And trade companies initially don't produce a lot of dust, but they do produce exponentially the amount of dust that they do when they're first dropped, once you get everything going. This takes time though, so we don't have time to wait. So this is where we're going. You can also see that our influence continues to falter, and that has to do with the fact that we did lose some approval, I'm assuming. Yeah, that's really hurting. I should have paid a little bit more attention to when those were going to fall off. Maybe it was better to take the other one. We'll deal with it. The dust penalty right now is just really brutal. The other thing we could do is get rid of one of these ships. We have 4 ships currently floating around, and one of them is not very good. So we may want to consider getting rid of one of them. Let's go ahead and check ice planets. Oh, more hostile fauna. We know all about those guys. And a life form. Let's see, we have extra move. So this is a situation where we have movement right now, I think, left over. So generally speaking, drop the probes that you have and just keep moving until you have nowhere else to go. As long as you want to utilize your movement to the best of its ability. So even though there's a curiosity here, I could wait here and get it next turn probably, but that would mean I'm sacrificing my movement. I'll actually get more information by continuing down this lane, and I can always come back and grab this. That is especially true because, well, I would say there's nobody else here, but we know there actually is somebody else here. And the Umbral Choir could come and grab that curiosity before we get back there. But in the early game, I think it's best to always try to utilize your full movement to scout the map and scout the lanes. Alright. We should be getting close to the end of this constellation. We know for a fact that this constellation is not directly attached to ours with a star lane. Probably with multiple wormholes, but no star lanes. And we know that from this. So they highlight differently. You can see they're different colors when I mouse over them. Useful little tip. Alright, let's go ahead and get moving. Oh, that's some good Irish coffee right there. I just recently learned how to make Irish coffee, and it's friggin' amazing. Alright, so 2 more curiosities. Go ahead and grab that one. We got another population type. Okay, so this is a situation where I might actually consider waiting. Because I have nowhere else I could go off of this node to utilize my remaining movement points, which are 2, it kind of makes sense for me to wait here and get this one and then come back this way. So we'll just wait 1 turn. Man, we found a lot of population this game in our curiosities. It seems a little atypical to me. And the worst part about this is so far away from any system we have. This guy's going to take so long. He's going to head to Nerad, but it's going to take him like 15 to 20 turns to get there at his current movement. As an aside, there is a technology or a tier upgrade, I think actually, that increases civilian ship movement, and that would speed up his movement and get him there a little quicker. Something to consider, but right now we need to solve our dust problems. Dust has gotten better again, and that's really curious because our approval actually fell further. So I'm kind of wondering if that massive amount of dust loss we were seeing is actually related to somebody successfully hacking us under our nose. That's a real possibility. What do we have for hacking defenses right now? Just encryption. We may want to consider We need to check this a little bit. Your defensive program has spotted an enemy hacking operation passing through this node. Trace operation started automatically. Once the origin of the hacking operation has been identified, response options will be available. So, Niall, yeah, it is almost certain that the Hishu are hacking us across empty space, no less. There's a good chance that we will trace this before they complete it. I don't know for certain that that is the case. We need to probably be paying more attention to this between turns before I hit the end turn button. We need to come back here and look at what's going on. Because we didn't get any kind of a warning message or anything that this was happening. If we did, I must have just skipped over it. Huh. We're going to get hacked a lot. Being next door neighbors with the Umbral Choir is probably a bad deal. But it actually works out well because I want to investigate the defensive hacking system. And what better enemy to try to do that against than the best hacker in the game? Alright. What else do we got going on here? So that sound effect is clearly something happened. Hostile trace detected. Your hack op was discovered by... Okay, so this is our pirate hack. They are trying to trace us. I don't really care. We found the Hishu's homeworld. And we got graviton research done, which is good for us because we really need to get this. And I'm going to put it there and that. Yeah, we'll go on that road. We'll want to move both of these populations over here as soon as this is completed. Our science is going to get a nice little boost from this, so that's good. We have another probe, so we'll go ahead and grab that. Just some XP. That sucks. Yeah, it's taken him 3 turns to get down that lane. So rough estimate, 3, 6, 9, geez, 12, 15. Yeah, he's looking at over 20 turns before he even gets there. That's terrible. Alright. Let's get the rest of our ships moving that need to be moved. And everybody should be on this planet now, so we'll merge them together. Well, would you look at that? You know, we actually removed that outpost, or they decided to cancel it. One of those two things happened. Okay, so we have some options now. And I'm going to have to think about this for a moment because I don't know what I want to do now. We do have the ability to turn the Argosy around and get back here in 3 turns. So the question is, do we want to put the effort into taking Hoth now? Which is a pretty good system overall. We've got a jungle, a savanna, a Mediterranean, and 2 big ash planets. This is actually better than our home system in many ways. Double Jade Onyx, we have an anomaly. Double Eden Incense, we have Transvine. So lots of ability to populate planets with luxury resources. That gives us tons of approval. Also a fair amount of dust with the building that we're going to be building in 1 turn. This system is worth it to me. I think it is. We already took the effort to keep them off of it, right? So it makes sense that we take this. It's only right. That being said, we probably don't need all of these ships sticking around. So actually, I am going to break this ship off, and we're going to leave him here. What are we going to do with these other ships? I have mixed feelings about what we do with them. Part of me wants to send them back and retrofit them for future activities, and part of me wants to just send them off to scout. So before we do anything, let's just double check. Is there anything in our immediate vicinity, curiosity-wise, that's been revealed from technology upgrades? And we haven't been in the science tree for a little while now. Well, no, we just did a science upgrade, but I don't see any new curiosities. So we haven't revealed any new curiosities. So then the question is, do we just keep those two ships together, or do we split them up? I think I'm going to split them up. I can't. Yeah, I can. Okay. We'll send this ship that way. We'll send this ship this away. And what I'll probably do once he gets down here is send some probes out this way and maybe try to grab some of these curiosities down this lane. It looks like these are really the only curiosities available. And this guy's obviously going this direction, but we'll probably launch a bunch of probes to this location. And then this guy... Wait a second. What? I sent the wrong ship. Gosh darn it. Well, now I have to leave this ship here because that's the only thing keeping them from putting another... How the hell did that happen? Oh, frick. You know what? As soon as he gets here, we may just disband him. He's not really worth that much. I mean, he doesn't have an offensive power of 107, but he's equipped with exclusively missiles, which are easily countered. This is a bad ship. It's just not worth keeping around. It would have been helpful if we... I mean, maybe it did help in this circumstance to help burn that outpost down. Whenever I get these crappy pirate fleets, the best case scenario, if you have the manpower, which we're at 900 and 900, so we're going to waste manpower disbanded. Maybe we wait to disband him. The ideal time to disband him at this point, because when we disband him, his manpower pool of 100 on the ship will go back to our global pool. However, our global pool is full, so it just gets wasted. But when we colonize with the Argosy, whatever system we colonize starts with a cap of like 200, but it starts at 0. And so we'll immediately pull like 200 out of this pool of 900 to fill the system defense force. When that happens, that will be the ideal time to disband him to get us back up to 900, potentially. The other thing is he's costing us money. He's costing us 8 dust a turn, and actually 8 dust a turn would put us solvent. So that's something else to consider. If he's not doing anything, then let's make sure that the Argosy is redirected. Okay, good. And let's check our hack. So we actually have two things are hacking us right now. I'm almost certain that Rigel is hacking us because we know there's a sanctuary here. And then we're getting hacked from Niall as well, which we've kind of sort of traced. Alright, is there anything else that I need to do this turn? Let's check this system out and see, is there anything we can actually do to enhance approval? Yes, we could build luxury lotteries, and we do have luxuries on this and this and this. So that's actually really good. We could also build infinite supermarkets. Infinite supermarkets is way cheaper. How quickly do we want this? How quickly do we want to get back to ecstatic? I guess quickly, because this is only going to last 6 more turns, and then we're going to lose it. So we really need this soon. And we may actually need this as well. So with the Vaulters, you get this Golden Age when you settle, and it does enhance your system's approval for a little bit. And it's this big influx of resources in the early game, or in the early stages of your settlement. But eventually you do fall back in line with the rest of the other players. It does give you kind of a jump start, which is great. Man, it can hurt really bad if you get too used to it and it falls off. And if you overextend without getting the right approval buildings to make up for the approval that eventually you no longer get. One concern I do have is the longer we leave Orem, the possibility of the Umbral Choir getting a sanctuary city on us goes up significantly. Now, they're going to have to hack through Nerid and a pirate system to get there, which makes it a little harder for them to do. But if they can get a back door on one of these and then hack to it, that's essentially how they get it. So, yeah, I'm a little dismayed at that. Our science is about to go up significantly with these 2 buildings getting completed, though. And notice how good our industry is everywhere. Nerid is really the only place that's a problem. And I think I know what's going on there. So we need to talk about sleepers. There's a very good chance that we've had sleepers placed on our system. We're gonna attempt to remove these sleepers. This minus 20 dust is a big indicator that we're getting sleepers somehow. This is not typical. This is not normal. We shouldn't see minus 50 dust. If we add all of these up, these do not add up to minus 50. Minus 50 dust on star system improvement. There's no way that is the case. So this is wrong, and this is sleeper activity. I'm almost certain of it. Why is our approval so low? Plus 10 from Golden Age. 50, 60, 70. Should be at like 90. Yeah, there's, well, we are getting some overpopulation penalties, but it's only, our total overpopulation for those 2 slots is only 5.6. This building actually is terrible here. Why am I putting that in the queue? We don't have any luxuries here. This building does jack for us. Yeah, no, that's dumb. We're not doing that. Be the first to colonize 8 planets within your system. We are not the Empire to achieve this. Our hero leveled up. That's good. We are going to go ahead and put the second point in here. That's more food on our home system, more growth on our home system, and then unlocks this, which is another good planet or good potential ability to help jumpstart systems. This one, however, I think is almost without question the most valuable skill in this second tier for Vaulter heroes, and that is plus an extra 0.5 deposit value on resource deposits. Empire-wide is the big point of that. Empire-wide, you get an extra half on every deposit. That includes Jadonics, Deciduous Trees, Super Spuds, Transvine, Hyperium, Titanium, all of them. That's a lot of resources, and the larger your empire is, and the more of those things you collect, the bigger it is. So, uh, yeah, that's huge. We're definitely taking 2 points, or at least 1 point in that. You also get an extra one on everything in your system. That means it's going to be real important for her to be on a system that is getting titanium and hyperium if possible, but um, we'll see. We're going to be moving her around a lot, so that'll take effect where it does. This is really good, especially on hot systems. But an extra 20 industry at level 2, and then potentially more for extra hot systems is really good, and really good at getting new systems off the ground. We're not going to be making her a fleet commander. 15% science and up to 30 on 2 points. Really good if you want to put her back in your main system that has all the science buildings already in it. But we're probably going to focus on using her as a jumpstart hero. She's going to jumpstart new. Let's go back here. Did I not apply that? I forgot to click this button. I do that quite frequently. So now that we've clicked that, she's taken care of. Good there. And we've gotten this completed, which means we need to look at our other systems that do have the luxury resources and see what we can get away with. Can I get away with that? Can I get away with that? Can I get away with that? Okay, so this is kind of the break point. But I'm okay with that. That's a lot more industry. Did we actually, just out of curiosity, did we shave any turns off of that? No, we did not. But we will roll over a little bit of industry into the next building, so that's good. Notice how much food she's producing now. 60 per turn, because we put another point in there. So that's really going to increase our growth rate. We're going to start getting more and more population, and we can fill out these other planets a little bit more efficiently. We want to make sure pulsos are over here when possible, because it's the only system we have an anomaly. We do have another potential curiosity here and here once we get a little further into the science tree. Buildings that need to get done. This one needs to get done yesterday. Approval buildings can kind of wait a little bit. Which one of these is cheaper? That's 500 and that's 1,000. These essentially do the exact same thing, but this one costs half as much. We don't need it right now, but we will need it in the future. Let's take a look at our approval and see. We still have a 10 point golden age that's running from our last colony. That will fall off of our approval eventually. We can actually check that. This is a neat little thing if you haven't noticed this icon before. Any system that has this little tetrahedron, or whatever this shape is called, denotes a golden age. And if you mouse over it, it'll tell you how many turns that golden age has remaining. You can also check it in the system screen. And it shows you right here. If you want to know how long your golden ages are going to last, that's a quick way to check. You can see the golden age for this fell off a long time ago, and the golden age for this fell off a while back, and so that's why we're not getting as much. But remember, as long as this is running, both of these systems are getting 10 approval from this golden age, and this system is getting 25. So that's really important too. Let's get our ships moving. Not Argosy around, will ya? And we made it over here, so we can launch a bunch of probes into their space. Let's go ahead and launch one there. One. don't see... I don't see any curiosities on these systems that we can search at this point. We are going to go ahead and head to Kron and get those curiosities, however. And this ship is freaking worthless, but we'll just let it just move before we disband it or do something with it. We need to pick a new technology. So now's the time to talk about the wheel thing again. One of the things that I think is important is you don't want to neglect any one wheel entirely. You can see that we've spent the vast majority of our time in these two trees. I spent a little bit of time over here and no time over here. I think it's time, and I think you should consider at least every 20 turns or 30 turns grabbing a tech from one of the wheels that you don't normally grab a tech from. And the reason for that is by the time you need it, if you haven't already invested some energy into getting to the techs that you're going to need, you're going to be behind. Like, I can't wait until the Hishu declare war on us to start grabbing some of this stuff. If I don't start, like, intermittently sprinkling some military tech in with all the other stuff I'm trying to do, as soon as they declare war on us, we're screwed. Because we're not going to have time to prepare. So we need to start grabbing some of these technologies and moving up this tree. And remember, at this point, these low-level techs don't cost very much at all. They're very cheap. And so Big Data Shipyards is an interesting technology. This is going to give us a building that lets our ships start at level 2, which just gives them slightly better combat stats, which is good. It's a real cheap building to build. It does give you a little militarist impact. But more importantly, we get this module, the O2G delivery gear, which gives us an additional 50 manpower on our ships. And then manpower deployment limit while these ships are in orbit is increased by 25 per module. It also gives our ships a little bit of health so that they have a little bit more resiliency than they normally do. So this is actually a really important early game module if you want to use your non-military ships for sieging, because scout ships only start with like 40 manpower. They just don't have a lot of manpower to siege systems down with. So you either need a ton of them, or you outfit them with these modules to give them a respectable amount of manpower that you can then use to invade, deal with systems. So we're going to go ahead and research that. And then we're going to move over here. And this was another one that we were very interested in maybe investing in. Spin projects in at least one of our systems could help with our law situation. And right now we're at the point where we may even want to consider canceling altogether because we're just completely stalled. This is only going to take 3 turns to get up. But the Dirty Hands Act is helping us, and I do want to keep it running as long as possible. So until we go completely negative, I'm going to let it continue to run. Unless we're doing a lot of things that don't really benefit. So like right now we're building, let's take a look, maybe it is a good time. Right now we're building a colony on one of our 3 systems, and that's going to take 4 turns. We're not benefiting from that here. But let's verify that. Now's a good time to verify that this is the case. So right now this is going to take 4 turns, and the cost is currently at 576. If I abolish this law, it did go down. Okay, so I was mistaken. This actually does count as a system improvement. That is interesting to know. So not running that law when these are going actually doesn't help you. And it did add a turn on to that. We're going to go ahead and activate it again. and let it continue to run. I did not know that. I was under the impression that colonizations did not count as system improvements, but they do. So you learn something new every day. They do change the game quite a bit from time to time. This could be a situation where it did work differently in the past, and maybe I'm just misremembering. That's also a possibility. But we've reached the important turn 30. All of this, and we've only reached turn 30. We were 5 turns into this video. We'll be lucky to get 10 turns done before I need to shut it down. But I think this is the perfect time, as I've already pointed out, to start transitioning to economy, which we've already started to do with this technology right here. And this is another system that benefits greatly from this technology, so we're actually going to jump it ahead in the queue. 5 turns or 4 turns? Let's put it after this, and we'll kind of go from there. We also added the ability to colonize this system, which definitely needs to get moved into the queue as well. Remember, each of these planets is giving us 10 science and 10 industry, but maybe this is more important than that. This building is going to push us back up to happy. This is going to increase the amount of dust that we're producing while we're happy, so that we're getting the maximum percent bonuses to it. Yeah, I like that a little bit better where we were. Got a ship over here that has a probe. Deciduous trees. Those will be helpful for when we need to pop that booster again. And now we have a decision to make. We have some excess movement again, so we can either move down this lane, or we can wait here, or we can move over here. I think we're going to go ahead and move down the lane. We'll come back and grab this shortly. Ooh, another minor sieve, it looks like. Interesting. This is a huge constellation. Holy moly, is it big. And we still haven't found an asteroid field, which is typically, I think, what the Umbral Choir start on. I'm not sure if it's always an asteroid field. I think it has been in all the games that I've played with it. Alright, let's end another turn. We're going to try to get to like turn 36 today. Just make it a baker's dozen if we can. Interesting. Most interesting indeed. So where are these guys? They're here, aren't they? Yeah. They've got to be right here. For them to have hacked this... Oh, sorry, Rigel. They hacked this. This was a minor... From what I know about the Umbral Choir, they do not start on a disconnected node, I don't think. They always start in a constellation on a special node. The only special node in this constellation is this one. Well, no, there's this one too. But I don't think they would start that close to us. It's possible. I think they started here. I think they started here. I think they hacked this minor sieve. I think they've been hacking us ever since. Which is something that I keep forgetting to take care of. We got a probe here. Where are we going to send this thing? Sending it that way isn't really going to help. Maybe we send it out a different direction. We know there's some stuff down here because there's some quest markers popping up. So let's try to split the difference between them and see if we can't hit them both with a single probe. And then let's head back this way to finish off our movement. The Shast. They're an interesting defensive unit. Warmongers, these guys will sometimes attack your ships. They do add extra infantry health and infantry damage on Empire, which is cool. We can afford to praise these guys a little bit, but unless we can afford to praise them enough to get them up, I don't think it's a worthy investment. The only good thing about them is they're far enough away from where I think the Umbral Choir is that maybe we can actually get some benefit from this. But since there were no curiosities here, that leads me to believe that the Umbral Choir is already over here, or at least sent their ships over here. I think I'm going to save my influence with pirates. Sacagawea. Oh, they've already taken a Sakagoja. They took the Endless Planet that was over here.
Feel free to anger us. Feel free also to suffer Tornazi's wrath.
Okay, so we definitely need to consider military tech sooner than later. We managed to hack the pirates once again. Before I do that, let's see what our relationship is.
What can I do for you?
We are still above the line, so we didn't fall back down too far. Something else I want to point out. If you look at this symbol right here, you can see that we're system level 2. I thought this was related to our hacking ability, but I guess this is just our system level. Oh, that's a neat little tooltip. We have a lot of tooltips. Alright, take one peek
you
at
again?
this. 320, 100, 450, 500. Falsify logs. Doink.
What, you again?
That was better. Alright. One more of those and we may push above the line. It doesn't look like any of these changed, but I think if we cross this threshold, they might. So that's what we're going to continue to try to do. Let's run another hack. Let's check our options, though. Maybe we have a better hack that we can run. Yeah, we're tracing this back to here. This is almost certainly where their home system is. So if we put a bunch of defensive programs on Nerad, we'll be in better shape, I think. But it's really crippling our empire. Alright, so let's talk about... We can run this one. That's going to take 7 turns. They're probably going to trace it. We can run this one. That takes 7 turns. We know they won't trace it. Is there anything else we can run? We can run that to their system. That takes 9 turns. I don't know whether we'll get traced or not. I think I want to continue to do this investigation with the pirates. This may not be optimal, but I'm trying to see if this is even remotely worthwhile. So we haven't spent any dust or influence to do this so far, and we've managed to stay in much better relations with them than I have in the past. Okay, there's something I need to do. We're at a good place. We're about to complete this quest, and I wanted to see... Alright, we don't have anything in the queue currently building a science building. One thing that I am not clear on, that I would like to know the answer to. Do I have a cold planet by chance? I do, but it doesn't have anybody on it. Do I have a cold planet that has people on it? forest over there, and this one was a Mediterranean, right? No, this is a tundra. This is a cold planet. This is a perfect place to give this a try. Um, we need 4 science buildings. This quest is asking us to build 4 science buildings. Um, crap. I didn't grab it. I could have sworn I grabbed it. Ah, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do what I thought. Because it's this technology. We did skip this one, didn't we? Because we don't have a lot of anomalies. What I was going to try to do is build this exoscience station and see if it counted as a science building. Even though it says planetary specialization, when you build this, it acts like a science building in cases of invasion where it can actually be destroyed and you lose it just like a science building. So I was curious to see if I built this, if it would actually count for our quest. And I have a good feeling that it would, and I have a good feeling that if it does, then this is actually a really interesting way to accelerate your ability to complete that quest in way faster than 30 turns in the future. If you do take that quest, you already start with this science building, so that's 1. If you immediately take this tech at the beginning of the game, because you can benefit from it, hopefully you have an anomaly, right? That's 2 buildings, and then you build this, which only costs 160 industry. That's 3 of the 4 that you need, probably within the first 10 to 15 turns of the game. So I have a feeling that that is the case, and I was going to experiment today and try it, but I don't really have the ability to do that unless I want to rush this ahead of Xenology, which I don't. But this is something to keep in mind. So if anybody plays with the Vaulters in their next couple of games, do me a favor, take the science quest at the beginning of your turn and build this, research this first, build the magnetic fields and exoscience stations, and tell me if it counts towards one of your 4 points towards that quest. Because that would be some useful information to have for the community. And would make sense as to why that's such an early quest, because it would be a lot easier to do if I knew that actually worked. In our case, we're really going to be focusing on getting spin projects going, because we need the influence. We've dealt with hacks. We've got traces running to 2 locations again, so this place is just getting hammered with hacks from the enemy. That being said, what defensive we could get? That's not what I'm looking for. We could get Interrogate, plus 30% bandwidth cost on hacking programs. We could get Infiltration Engine, more hacking operations and better hacking speed. That doesn't help me. Lockdown blocks the create backdoor outcome, removes detected backdoors. That could potentially be helpful. Okay, so that's another increase to hacking ability. I don't see any other ones. Huh. Thought there was some more defensive hacking. But this might be the next one that we want to grab. Either Interrogate or... Well, wait a second. We just finished Lockdown. Why don't I show that as an option? Because I have too much bandwidth already utilized? What's going on here? Come back. No, I don't want to cancel that. I want to add... Okay, yeah, let's do that. Did it work? Yeah, we've got a lockdown running on Nerid now. Okay, good. I don't know if it'll help, but it can't hurt, right? We know... Oh, this is interesting. They're sending an exploration ship over here. And it happens to have, allegedly, 127 offensive power and 95 defensive power. It looks like it's outfitted with lasers. I know that because of the range categories, 50, 150. So it has lasers of some sort. Huh. Well, if they've invested heavily in lasers, we should probably start investing in countermeasures to lasers, which will include better shields. Out of curiosity, weapon we actually do have a good counter to lasers. Missiles are a good counter to lasers. Lasers are decent at long and medium range. They definitely outclass bullet weapons at those ranges. But they are terrible against missiles because missiles outdamage them significantly and they provide zero missile defense. Also, that particular ship had energy defenses, and those are pretty crappy against missiles as well. So, my plan will definitely be, probably in the next video, to outfit some ships with some missiles. Unfortunately, all of our ships are really far away, and so we may have to shift some of our systems to ship production again. That's going to be difficult because we're already running negative, and I think that has to do with this. And this is something that I've moused over a couple times and haven't clicked. I think we have a bunch of sleepers that are siphoning off resources from this system, which is causing the dust to be so deep. And I think the way that we fix that is by running this reverse sleeper every 5 turns. It's going to cause a massive hit to our approval, but we're already receiving no benefits because our approval is so bad. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this. SB pointed this out in his video. It's not minus 25% approval as in a flat 25%, it's minus 25% of your total approval. And so that's why it went from 68 to 54. We're still in content even with doing this, so it really didn't affect the system at all. But what is affecting our system is whatever these hacks that these guys are doing to us, whether it's the pirates or whether it's the Umbral Choir. They've got a bunch of sleepers over here siphoning off resources. I'm almost certain of it. There's no other explanation for this massive amount of dust and whatnot. So let's try to cut that out. Also, I guess it's going to be 3 turns before we can move these guys over, but getting these guys off of here will help a little bit. They're in the overpopulation slots, and unfortunately we just don't have any ability to change that. We have another ship over here. This is a brood ship. This is a colonizer. They're trying to colonize this system once again. They did not bring any backup, so I'm not sure how they plan on colonizing that while my pirate is here. That being said, is there any reasonable area that I can scout with these probes? We've pretty much sent probes out in every direction at this point. So there is not much we can do. I'm really feeling bummed because if I hadn't goofed up with this, this ship could be all the way down this lane and have all this scouted by now. And this stupid ship that's practically worthless could actually be doing something useful in keeping this system from being taken over by this enemy fleet. As far as I'm aware, as long as you are blockading or guarding a system, opponents will not be able to drop a colony ship on them. I think that is the case. We will find out here in just a moment. completely fine. Deep breath is over. Nereid's been compromised. Your system has been hacked. The effects may be immediately visible or may require you to investigate further. This is that really vague message I mentioned before. We know Nereid's getting hacked constantly. I don't know if there's much we can do. Population bonuses have ended. We can pop them again. We got another Sister of Mercies, so that booster's doing more work. And low price of Jadonics, healthy stocks above 25 and no demand, have led to rogue traders buying to corner the market. Does that mean that Jadonics is selling for more than it normally would? Let's find out. It's a good time to investigate. That does not look like a very useful amount. So that message is basically telling us that the price of Jadonics is going down, I guess? It says here the price is going up. It probably tanked when I sold all of mine right here. No? Okay. So this is where it was at a few turns ago, and this is where it's at now. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not certain what's going on with this. I would think that this is when I bought, or I sold all that Jadonics to colonize our ship, but I think that was actually over here somewhere, turn-wise. Might have even been turn 22. Yeah, hard to say. We'll see what happens. Where's their ship at? Interesting. Their ship moved. It's already dropped the damn colony? Son of a bitch. You gotta be freaking kidding me. Well, we certainly don't have the dust to do this anyways, so we're not really... Oh my goodness. How are we going to deal with this? How many turns is this going to take now? 5. That's too many. Well, this might be a good place to wrap up the video and let me think about my situation here. That's 4 turns. Oh my goodness. So the question is, do I try to starve this guy out and leave the Argosy here and colonize Hoth like I planned earlier? Or do I just send the Argosy over to Orem? Yeah, this is a good place to stop the video for today. I apologize we didn't get to quite to turn 36 like I was hoping to, but this video has gone on long enough, and this is a big decision that I'm going to have to make here. That being said, we are definitely looking at some military and some war in the very near future, and so you've kind of heard my plans for solving our dust crisis. We're on the verge of getting that done, although I was hoping to get a little further along in that process. And then we are going to have to quickly transition to some military technologies and capacities, which we've already sort of started. We queued up a military tech, or got one already. So, that being said, I hope you guys are enjoying the series. I am going to continue it for quite a while. I want to try to get at least into like turn 60 to 100, somewhere in there, on this particular series, because I think there's a lot of good information in the mid-game that I can present you guys with. So that's what we'll try to do. I won't make any promises that I'm going to finish this playthrough to its entirety, at least on camera. A lot of times I'll do this off camera when it starts to get to a slog, as the later turns do. Um, but I'll try to go further, and especially if people are commenting and I'm getting a lot of views on my videos, um, I tend to be a little bit more motivated to continue recording that series. So also, I do want to thank all of you who are trying to give me advice on how to fix my issues with my microphone static. I have been looking into all of the things that you've recommended, and we'll see if any of them pay off. I did try some new driver stuff again today, and also um, some USB switcherooies, and we'll see if that had any impact on the sound quality. Until next time, this has been the Nose Plays, and you guys have a great day.